Hey everyone, Big Markets Think Simple here. Do you remember staying up all night building Gundam model kits or blowing through your entire allowance at the arcade playing Pac-Man and Tekken? Dragon Ball, Gundam, Tekken, One Piece, Pac-Man, just hearing those names gives you chills, right? Well, here's something wild. Every single one of those IPs actually lives under the same roof. One company, Bandai Namco. In 2005, toy giant Bandai and gaming powerhouse Namco merged into one. Today, that company pulls in roughly 1.2 trillion yen a year, about $8 billion, making it the second largest game and toy company in Japan. Today, we're going to break down exactly how this company turned your childhood, and honestly, your adulthood too, into a money-making machine.
This video is not investment advice, it's for educational, entertainment, and informational purposes only. I'm not a financial advisor. Please do your own research before making any investment decisions. Any investment decisions are your own responsibility.
The real engine behind Bandai Namco isn't factories or tech, it's their portfolio of IPs, characters and universes that survive across generations. This isn't just a toy company or a game company, this is a company that owns worlds people never want to leave. Let's start with the IPs Bandai Namco brought into existence themselves. First up, Mobile Suit Gundam. When it first aired in 1979, this wasn't just a robot cartoon, it was the world's first real robot story, one that dealt with the tragedy of war, human conflict, and cold political decisions. Early ratings were actually pretty bad, but then the plastic model kits, Gunpla, exploded in popularity, and everything changed. Over the following decades, the franchise expanded into films, games, anime, and figures, building an entire universe. Gunpla cumulative sales have crossed 700 million units, and Gundam controls over 80% of Japan's character plastic model market. As of fiscal year 2025, Gundam-related revenue hit approximately 1.535 trillion yen, roughly $1 billion, still serving as the group's core cash cow. Gundam isn't just content, it's the foundation Bandai Namco is built on. On the gaming side, there's Pac-Man and Tekken. Pac-Man launched in 1980 and became more than a video game character. It became a global pop culture icon. A yellow circle eating dots in a maze. Simple, but that symbol still holds up today, and Pac-Man remains Bandai Namco's mascot loved around the world. Then there's Tekken. The 3D fighting game that launched in 1994 shook up the market with its revolutionary polygon graphics and satisfying, heavy-hitting combat. But beyond the fighting, it's the soap opera-level drama of the Mishima family saga running through every installment that keeps fans hooked. 30 years later, Tekken 8 is still landing globally, and the franchise stays relevant on the esports stage. Namco built competition and character love inside arcade culture, and that legacy is still alive today. But there are two IPs that absolutely cannot be left out of any Bandai Namco conversation: Dragon Ball and One Piece. Now here's something important. Bandai Namco didn't create these. The original copyrights belong to Japanese publisher Shueisha. Dragon Ball began serialization in 1984, following a boy named Goku who fights and grows in an endless quest to get stronger. It sounds simple, but the formula of training and transcendence that this manga created became the blueprint for decades of shonen manga worldwide. It's a story that defined childhoods across Latin America, Europe, and Southeast Asia, not just Japan. One Piece started in 1997 and is still running today, a pirate adventure following Luffy and his crew as they sail the seas searching for the legendary treasure called the One Piece and the title of King of the Pirates. More than just an adventure story, it carries universal themes of freedom, friendship, and chasing your dreams. It holds the record as the best-selling manga series in history, with over 500 million copies sold worldwide. So what does Bandai Namco actually do with these IPs? They sell the experience. They build console games based on Dragon Ball and One Piece. They release figures, model kits, card games, capsule toys, and all kinds of merchandise. When an anime gets hot, the product sales rise with it. As of fiscal year 2025, Dragon Ball-related group revenue has exceeded roughly $1.27 billion, and One Piece is pulling in over $660 million, both sitting firmly as core revenue drivers. These aren't their own IPs, but the ability to expand these universes into products and experiences, that's where Bandai Namco is untouchable.
Ultimately, Bandai Namco's strength isn't one hit, it's a portfolio of IPs that spans generations. They take every IP, expand the universe, and build a structure where fans keep coming back to spend. That's the real engine driving this company. Let me show you exactly how it works, using Gundam as the example. Bandai Namco's subsidiary Sunrise releases a new Gundam anime. Fans start buzzing. Right at that moment, Bandai drops new Gunpla kits. Bandai Namco Entertainment pushes new content updates in console and mobile games. Bandai Namco Amusement adds new Gundam units to arcade machines at game centers. And in places like Odaiba in Tokyo, there's a real life-size 60-foot Gundam just standing there. Fans open their wallets at every single one of those steps. Same fan, same IP, multiple purchases. This is Bandai Namco's IP flywheel. Once it starts spinning, it doesn't stop. Let's break that flywheel down. It runs on 4 gears. Gear 1. Create. Bandai Namco Filmworks and game studios build the story and the world of an IP. Anime, films, original games come from here. This is where the characters fans fall in love with are born. Gear 2. Gamify. The digital division expands the IP into console, PC, and mobile games. Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, Tekken 8, they come from here. Gear 3. Merchandise. The toy and hobby division turns IPs into physical objects. Model kits, figures, card games, capsule toys. This lets fans hold the IP in their hands. Gear 4. Experience. The amusement division brings IPs to life through game centers, events, and exhibitions. This is where fans meet the IP outside of a screen. And then all of it gets distributed globally through local subsidiaries across Europe, North America, and Asia. The efficiency this creates shows up in the numbers. Bandai Namco's advertising spend sits at about 5.8% of revenue. Toy competitor Hasbro spends around 15%, nearly 3 times more. The reason is simple. One Gundam anime production simultaneously handles marketing for the toy, game, arcade, and licensing divisions at the same time. Spend once, feed 4 businesses. And this doesn't only apply to Gundam. Bandai and Bandai Spirits merchandise over 500 IPs every single year. From mega IPs like Dragon Ball, One Piece, and Gundam, all the way down to smaller titles, the pipeline converting them into toys, goods, and capsule toys runs almost like a machine. This operational capability has been built over decades, and it's not something any competitor can replicate overnight. So how much is this flywheel actually spinning up? Let's look at the real numbers. For fiscal year 2025, Bandai Namco's consolidated total revenue hit 1.2415 trillion yen, roughly $8.3 billion. Operating profit came in at 180.2 billion yen, about $1.2 billion, solidly second in Japan's game and toy industry behind Nintendo, and among the top entertainment companies in the entire country. Now let's break down where that revenue actually comes from division by division. The biggest division is Toys and Hobby, revenue of roughly $3.7 billion, operating profit around $620 million, carrying over half the group's total profit on its own. Gunpla, figures, card games, capsule toys all live here. But what's interesting is why this division keeps growing. 3 reasons. First, Bandai's own online direct store, Premium Bandai, is capturing more share, which means they're bringing the middleman's margin in-house. Second, demand for premium Gunpla is rising. There's a growing layer of adult collectors buying high-end kits worth hundreds of dollars each, which means the average selling price is climbing, not just the volume. Third, the One Piece card game. The cost to print a pack of cards is low, but the price premium that IP fandom creates is high. Structurally, these margins have nowhere to go but up.
Second is the digital division, revenue around $2.8 billion, operating profit about $420 million. Console games and mobile games live here. But one number in this division jumps out. The prior year, fiscal year 2024, operating profit was just 62 billion yen. This year, it's 685 billion yen. That's a nearly 1,000% surge in a single year. The reason was 2 titles, the Elden Ring DLC and Dragon Ball Sparking Zero, both massive global hits. The flip side, why the previous year was so painful, wasn't just weak sales. They took a massive impairment charge on games that were still in development. Blue Protocol and several other titles had their development costs written off all at once. That's the nature of this division. When a hit lands, it explodes. When it doesn't, it tanks. Volatility is the game here. Third is amusement. Revenue around $870 million, operating profit around $52 million. They operate 241 company-owned game centers and over 800 capsule toy specialty stores. Margins are thin, but this division creates the touchpoints where fans physically experience IPs, and that experience quietly pulls up revenue across every other division. Last is IP production. Revenue around $550 million, operating profit around $74 million, the smallest revenue among the four divisions. But without this one, none of the other three exist. No new Gundam anime means Gunpla doesn't sell and games struggle to gain traction. The direct revenue is small, but this division is the ignition switch for the entire group's flywheel. In the end, Bandai Namco's structure is a stable foundation in toys with a high volatility engine in digital sitting on top. Toys hold the floor, digital maximizes the ceiling when it pops. That's the combination that got this company past 1 trillion yen. So does this mean everything's running perfectly with no risk on the horizon? No, the risks are real and they're pretty clear. The first risk is IP concentration. Just 3 IPs, Dragon Ball, Gundam, and One Piece, account for roughly 40% of the group's total revenue. What makes it even more significant is that 2 of those 3, Dragon Ball and One Piece, aren't actually owned by Bandai Namco. The copyrights belong to Shueisha and Koei. Decades of partnership have made the arrangement feel almost like an exclusive lock, but if contract terms ever shift, or if the popularity of those IPs itself starts to fade, the entire group's revenue could shake. On top of that, both Gundam and Dragon Ball are over 40 years old. The core fan base is aging into their 40s and 50s. That's just the reality. Now, The Witch from Mercury did bring younger fans into the Gundam universe, and Dragon Ball is drawing in new 10 to 20-year-olds across Latin America and Southeast Asia through Netflix. But whether this becomes a structural shift or just a temporary bounce is still something we have to watch. The second risk is new IP creation. Bandai Namco had been announcing for years that they intend to build new IPs, but looking back at the last decade, they haven't produced many IPs that come close to Gundam or Tekken in scale. The clearest example is Blue Protocol, a massive online project roughly a decade in the making, targeting global expansion. It shut down in January 2025, just 19 months after launch. The gap between announcing new IP ambitions and actually delivering on them, that's the hardest problem this company has to solve.
And they know it, so they're pushing to close that gap and keep expanding. The first pillar of their expansion plan is growing overseas revenue. Right now, international revenue sits at roughly 30% of total group sales. Bandai Namco's goal is to push that to 50%. To get there, they're reinforcing North American and European operations, expanding their global direct-to-consumer stores, and deepening collaboration with Sony to broaden global distribution of their anime and video content. The strategy is to stop consuming these IPs only inside Japan and start exporting them to the world. The second pillar is pulling in a new generation of fans. A live-action Gundam film is in production with Legendary Pictures for a Netflix global release, targeting a 2026 debut, a big bet to stamp the Gundam name into the minds of Western audiences in their teens and 20s. Dragon Ball is already showing results through Netflix global distribution. The 2024 new series Dragon Ball Daima hit the top 10 on Netflix in 42 countries and ranked number 1 in children's viewing worldwide. A new generation is meeting Dragon Ball for the very first time, and that's a meaningful signal. Ultimately, Bandai Namco's future comes down to 2 things: how cleverly they can reimagine their older IPs, and how effectively they can pull in younger audiences. Keep that balance and the flywheel keeps spinning. Lose it and the growth story slows down. Right now, this company is standing exactly at that crossroads. Alright, time to wrap up the Bandai Namco story. The beginning was actually pretty humble. In 1950, a small toy shop called Bandai was selling red rubber toys. In 1955, Namco started with just 2 horse rides on a department store rooftop. One was toys, one was amusement rides. 2 companies that looked nothing alike until they merged in 2005. And from that point on, they completely changed direction. They became, in their own words, an IP-centered comprehensive entertainment group. 20 years later, they've evolved into something genuinely one of a kind, an IP empire that uses powerhouses like Gundam and Dragon Ball to occupy 360 degrees of a fan's daily life, from toys to games to anime. In an era where new hits are harder than ever to create, Bandai Namco is betting on something different: the technology of keeping old characters alive forever. What do you think Bandai Namco's future looks like? And what was the very first Bandai Namco IP that ever hit you in the childhood? Drop your memories and your take in the comments. Like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one.